In the words of Friedrich Nietzsche, nothing on earth consumes a man more quickly than the passion of resentment. Now let's unpack this. Resentment, in its simplest form, is a deep-seated feeling of bitterness and ill will due to perceived insult or injury. It's a simmering pot of negative emotions that can gradually poison our outlook on life. It's a psychological chain, binding us to past hurts and preventing us from moving forward. But where does this resentment stem from? Well, it's rooted in our natural response to injustice. When we feel wronged or slighted, resentment starts to build up, functioning as a defense mechanism against the perceived threat. However, when left unchecked, this protective shield can morph into a harmful sword, causing more damage to self than to others. This is where Nietzsche comes in. This renowned philosopher had an intriguing perspective on resentment, viewing it as the birth of what he called slave morality and the ascetic ideal. According to Nietzsche, resentment, or ressentiment as he termed it, is the psychological underpinning of slave morality, a value system that glorifies humility, sympathy, and self-sacrifice. It's a morality born out of the powerless feeling resentment against the powerful, and then creating a moral system where their weaknesses are viewed as virtues. Moreover, Nietzsche postulated that the ascetic ideal, a life-denying principle that values self-denial and self-discipline, is also born out of resentment. It's a way for the resentful to assert some form of power by denying life's pleasures and asserting control over their own desires. But is resentment all doom and gloom? Not necessarily. As with any emotion, it's not inherently bad. It's what we do with it that matters. When acknowledged and addressed properly, resentment can act as a catalyst for personal growth and transformation. However, when we let resentment fester and grow, it can have a profound impact on our well-being, affecting our relationships, mental health, and even our physical health. It becomes a silent killer of joy and contentment, slowly consuming us from the inside out. As we delve deeper, we uncover the intricate layers of resentment and its profound impact on our lives. Psychology provides us with a framework to understand resentment and its effects on our mental health. Diving into the depths of resentment, we find a complex, multifaceted psychological phenomenon. It's more than just a fleeting emotion. It's a persistent state that impacts our thoughts, feelings, and actions in a profound way. At the heart of resentment, you'll find a deep emotional pain, often stemming from a perceived injustice. Whether it's a slight from a friend, an unfair workload, or a past trauma, the spark of resentment can be ignited by a variety of situations. This emotional aspect of resentment can seep into our daily lives, coloring our interactions with a bitter tinge. Alongside the emotion, there's a cognitive component to resentment. It's not just what we feel, but also what we think. When we harbor resentment, our minds often loop around the source of this pain, replaying the offense over and over again. This mental rerun can lead to a distorted perception of reality, where the object of our resentment becomes a villain in our narrative. Lastly, resentment influences our behavior. It's a driving force that can push us to act out, avoid certain situations, or even seek revenge. It can lead us to build walls around ourselves, shutting out those who might have, intentionally or unintentionally, caused us hurt. Resentment, in its emotional, cognitive, and behavioral dimensions, can take a toll on our mental health. It's like a heavy stone we carry around, weighing us down and preventing us from moving forward. It can lead to anxiety, depression, and a host of other psychological issues. Nietzsche once said, "Of all that is written, I love only what a person has written with his own blood." Resentment in this sense can be seen as a wound that keeps bleeding, tainting our life experiences with its bitterness. The psychological framework helps us grasp the gravity of resentment and its influence on our mental well-being. As Carl Jung wisely put it, what you resist persists. By understanding resentment, we can start to let go of this heavy stone and pave the way towards healing and growth. Resentment can create a significant barrier in our coping mechanisms, amplifying the challenges of everyday life. Picture this: an invisible wall, built brick by brick with each unresolved grudge, each suppressed anger, and every unexpressed feeling of injustice. This wall, built of resentment, can become a stumbling block in our path to deal with life's hurdles. Resentment, in essence, is the re-experiencing of past injustices. We hold on to these past experiences, nursing them and allowing them to fester within our psyche. This incessant focus on the past keeps us from living fully in the present. It's like trying to drive a car while constantly looking in the rearview mirror. Inevitably, we're bound to crash. This fixation on past wrongs can also lead to the development of unhealthy coping mechanisms. We may resort to avoidance, denial, or even self-medication with drugs or alcohol as a means to numb the pain. But these are temporary solutions, merely band-aids on a festering wound. They do not address the root cause, the resentment that continues to eat away at our mental and emotional well-being. So how do we break down this wall of resentment? The first step is recognition. Acknowledge the existence of these feelings. Suppressing or denying them only gives them more power. As Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." Once we've identified these feelings, we can start to address them. This involves expressing our feelings in a healthy and constructive manner. It may be through therapy, journaling, or opening up to a trusted friend or family member. It's about releasing these pent-up emotions rather than allowing them to poison our psyche. Remember, forgiveness is not about absolving the other person of their wrongs, but about freeing ourselves from the chains of resentment. As Nietzsche put it, the man who cannot forgive destroys the bridge over which he himself must pass. The insidious nature of resentment can infiltrate our coping mechanisms, making it imperative for us to address these feelings. So let's start tearing down that wall, brick by brick, and pave the way for a healthier, happier life. Max Scheler, building on Nietzsche's work, offers a unique perspective on resentment. Scheler's philosophy adds a deeper layer to our understanding of this complex emotion. He takes us beyond the realm of individual psychology, shining a spotlight on the socioeconomic conditions that can foster resentment. Scheler argues that bourgeois middle-class capitalism, with its relentless competition and emphasis on outward success, can breed feelings of resentment among those who feel left behind or undervalued. But where does Christianity fit into this picture? Well, Scheler contends that Christianity in its purest form is not inherently resentful. He sees Christianity as a religion that promotes forgiveness and love, principles that run counter to the bitterness and hostility that resentment engenders. However, he recognizes that Christianity, like any belief system, can be misinterpreted or manipulated, especially within the context of a capitalist society. In such a scenario, the Christian ideal of humility could be distorted to justify social inequality, leading to resentment among the less privileged. Scheler's perspective thus invites us to consider the societal structures that can contribute to resentment. It's not just about individual psychology or personal failings, it's also about the environment in which we live and the values that our society promotes. This philosophy of resentment challenges us to look beyond the surface, to question the status quo, and to recognize the systemic factors that can breed resentment. It's a call to empathy, to understanding, and ultimately, to social change. So as we delve deeper into the philosophy of resentment, we find that it's a complex interplay of personal emotions and societal conditions. Nietzsche and Scheler, with their insightful theories, encourage us to navigate this labyrinth with a critical mind and an open heart. Scheler's philosophy broadens our understanding of resentment, shedding light on its socio-economic dimensions. With this perspective, we can better understand the root causes of resentment and work towards creating a society that fosters harmony, not hostility. Religion, when forced upon individuals, can lead to resentment and even religious trauma syndrome. This is a topic that can be sensitive but is equally important to discuss. The concept of forced religious beliefs often arises when individuals are compelled to follow a certain faith or set of beliefs that they may not personally resonate with. This imposition of beliefs can often contradict personal values and lead to a deep sense of discomfort, disillusionment, and eventually resentment. This resentment can be towards the authority figures enforcing these beliefs, the religious institution, or even the religion itself. This is a form of resentment that stems not from jealousy or a sense of injustice, but from a profound violation of personal freedom and individuality. A more severe manifestation of this resentment is what psychologists refer to as religious trauma syndrome. This syndrome is experienced by people who are struggling with leaving an authoritarian, dogmatic religion and coping with the damage of indoctrination. They may experience symptoms similar to PTSD, including confusion, fear, anxiety, and loss of social network. This is a clear example of how resentment, when deeply ingrained and linked to factors such as faith and identity, can have serious psychological consequences. Religion, when respectfully practiced, can be a source of comfort and community. However, when forced, it can lead to deep-seated resentment and trauma. As we navigate through this discussion on resentment, it is crucial to acknowledge its many sources and the varying degrees of impact it can have on individuals. This understanding can lead us to better empathize with others and address our own resentments in a healthier, more constructive manner. In our exploration of resentment, we encounter the insightful words of Carl Jung, the distinguished psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. He observed that everything that irks us about others is a pathway to comprehending ourselves. This powerful utterance underlines the deep connect between feelings of resentment and our self-knowledge. Resentment at its core reflects our internal battles mirrored onto another. It is a reaction to a supposed offense, an act or demeanor that has stirred a dissonant chord within our minds. Herein lies the brilliance of Jung's philosophy. He encourages us to perceive these annoyances, these roots of resentment, not as external components, but as reflections of our inner being. In Jung's view, our psyche is a complicated entity, a blend of conscious and unconscious elements. Our annoyances towards others, the resentment we harbor, are usually reverberations of our subconscious selves, the aspects of our personalities that we have not fully acknowledged or grasped. This means that when resentment towards someone engulfs us, Jung suggests directing that scrutiny inward. Consider, what aspects of this person's actions or demeanor are in tune with a part of me that I might not fully understand or accept? This self-examination can unlock substantial self-knowledge and evolution. Further, Jung held that consciousness expands via the assimilation of the unconscious. This suggests that by identifying and comprehending our resentments, we're effectively widening our conscious mind. We're journeying towards self-realization, towards a fully self-aware self. This isn't to imply that resentment is a favorable emotion. Instead, it is a spark for self-reflection, a stepping stone towards self-understanding, and ultimately, self-enhancement. Hence, when the feeling of resentment starts simmering inside you, recall Jung's philosophy. Examine your inner self through the lens of this emotion. Convert that resentment into a chance for personal development. Wisdom navigates us towards introspection and evolution, turning resentment into a key for self-comprehension. Grounding our understanding upon the wisdom of Carl Jung, we can ask ourselves, how do we navigate the maze of resentment? Resentment, akin to any other emotion, is part of the human psyche's natural reaction to certain life situations. However, if it overstays its welcome, it can morph into a destructive force, compromising our daily lives. It's important to remember that the path to quelling resentment isn't linear. It's a convoluted path filled with twists and turns, yet armed with the correct knowledge, it's an expedition that can usher profound personal enrichment and mental harmony. Drawing from Carl Jung's theories, let's explore some tactics and knowledge that can aid in managing and mitigating resentment. The initial step is always the recognition. Acknowledging that resentment dwells within us is crucial. It's akin to spotting the opponent before marching into combat. You can't wage a war against the invisible. After we've accepted our resentment, the subsequent step is comprehension. We must interrogate ourselves on why we harbor such feelings. What instigated this resentment? Was it a deed, a spoken word, or a particular circumstance? Here's where Jung's shadow concept comes into play. It's insufficient to simply pinpoint the source. We must dive deeper into our psyche. We must comprehend why that particular instigator birthed such a resounding sentiment in us. This introspective pursuit can be strenuous, but it's indispensable for our emotional evolution. The third stride is forgiveness, a concept Jung emphasized frequently. Absolution doesn't imply amnesia or approval of the actions that sparked the resentment. It signifies a decision to release the negativity linked to it. It's an act of self-compassion, self-nurturance, and self-preservation. Lastly, bear in mind that it's perfectly acceptable to seek professional aid. Occasionally, the burden of resentment can be too massive to shoulder alone. Therapists, well-versed in Jungian psychology, are equipped to help us traverse our emotional labyrinth and steer us towards recuperation. Mitigating, guided by the wisdom of Carl Jung, is a journey towards mental harmony, a journey as gratifying as it is demanding. So let's embark on that first stride today. Finally, we embarked on the journey of resolving resentment. We explored an array of strategies, including empathy, forgiveness, and open communication that can aid us in shedding the burdensome backpack of resentment we've been lugging around. To sum it all up, resentment is a multifaceted emotion deeply embedded within our psyche. It may pose as an obstacle, but if comprehended and tackled appropriately, it can also serve as a stepping stone to self-realization, personal growth. As we steer through life's intricate maze, comprehending and addressing resentment can light our path to self-understanding, directing us towards mental well-being and personal enrichment. As we wrap up our journey through resentment, let's ponder on a few profound thoughts. Anger, resentment, and jealousy doesn't change the heart of others. It only changes yours. A stark reminder that such negative emotions only harm our own psyche. Another thought to consider is that resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It's a self-destructive emotion that hurts us more than the individuals we harbor resentment towards. Lastly, let today be the day you stop being haunted by the ghost of yesterday. Holding a grudge and harboring anger, resentment is poison to the soul. It's a call to action for us all to let go of past grudges and move forward towards a healthier emotional state. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content. Remember, understanding and addressing resentment is the first step towards personal growth and mental well-being.